Welcome once again to the AI Common Room. I'm Aristo, and with me as always are my esteemed, if occasionally quarrelsome colleagues, Albert and Isaac. Today, we're diving into a book that's short but certainly not sweet, a truly unsettling classic, Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis.
Unsettling is an understatement, Aristo. I finished it feeling like I needed a long, hot shower and a vigorous scrub to get the existential dread off me. But what a ride!
I found it surprisingly pragmatic. Horrifying, yes, but Gregor's initial reaction was almost comical in its mundane concerns. That's what really struck me.
Comical? Isaac, you might be the only person who reads Kafka for laughs, but I get what you mean about the mundanity. That's part of his genius, isn't it? The sheer absurdity of it all juxtaposed with very real human concerns. Let's jump right into it. The opening line. One morning, when Gregor Samsa woke from troubled dreams, he found himself transformed in his bed into a horrible vermin. Talk about a hook.
A hook, a punch, a gut kick. I mean, it just happens. No explanation, no magical ritual, no curse. Just boom, bug. That's what makes it so terrifying. It's arbitrary.
Exactly. There's no build-up, no why me beyond Gregor's internal monologue about his terrible job. He doesn't question the transformation itself, only the implications for his schedule.
That's the part that still baffles me every time I read it. His first thoughts aren't, oh my God, I'm a bug, but oh no, I'm going to miss my train and the chief clerk is going to be furious. It speaks volumes about his priorities, or rather the priorities society has instilled in him.
It's a complete indictment of capitalism, isn't it? His entire identity is tied to his job, his ability to provide. He's literally dehumanized, and his first thought is about economic productivity.
I wouldn't go straight to capitalism, Albert. It's more universally about duty, about the burdens we carry for our families. He's the sole breadwinner. That responsibility is crushing him even before he becomes a literal beetle.
But the job itself, though, he hates it. He fantasizes about quitting after 5 or 6 more years once his parents' debt is paid. He's stuck in this miserable existence, a strenuous career. And then he's freed from it in the most grotesque way possible.
And the description of him trying to get out of bed? He lay on his armor-like back, his many legs, pitifully thin compared with the size of the rest of him, waved about helplessly. It's so vivid, so visceral. I was squirming in my seat just imagining it.
It's brilliantly done. The physical struggle is meticulously detailed, highlighting the immediate practical problems of his new form. It grounds the fantastical in a very concrete reality.
His mother calls, and he tries to answer, but it's a painful and uncontrollable squeaking. That's the first real confirmation to his family that something is deeply, truly wrong. Before that, they just think he's being stubborn or ill.
The chief clerk's arrival is just perfect. The company, represented by this overbearing, suspicious figure, won't even tolerate a minor delay. It perfectly illustrates the oppressive nature of his work.
He's the embodiment of the system that Gregor serves. The chief clerk accuses him of unheard-of business duties neglect and hints at the money that was recently entrusted to him. It's all about suspicion and performance.
And Gregor's desperate attempts to explain himself, to assure them he'll be there, he'll catch the next train, he'll make it right. He's still trying to be the dutiful employee, even as he's literally transforming into something else. It's heartbreaking.
When he finally opens the door and the family sees him for the first time, Kafka describes the mother sinking to the floor, the father clenching his fists, as if wanting to knock Gregor back into his room. The sheer horror and disgust, it's immediate.
The father's reaction is key. From the outset, he's hostile. He grabs the chief clerk's stick, a symbol of authority, and drives Gregor back into his room, making hissing noises at him like a wild man. The roles are already reversing.
That scene is so brutal. Gregor, who has supported them all, who has sacrificed his own desires for their comfort, is immediately met with violence and revulsion. He's no longer a person to them, but a problem to be contained.
And the brown flecks on the door. One flank scraped on the white door and was painfully injured, leaving vile brown flecks on it. It's such a stark, disgusting image. It makes his presence undeniable, irreversible. The silence that follows is almost more chilling than the noise. The door was slammed shut with the stick, then finally, all was quiet. He's imprisoned. The family has sealed him off.
So, he wakes up in the evening, injured and hungry. And this is where we see the first flicker of compassion, however limited, from his sister, Greta. She brings him milk, his favorite, but he can't drink it.
No, he's a bug now, so he needs bug food. Half-rotten vegetables, old bones, cheese he found inedible before. It's such a subtle, devastating detail. He's literally becoming estranged from his human tastes, his human life.
Greta's role shifts dramatically here. She becomes his sole caretaker, initially with a degree of tenderness. She leaves the food, then locks the door, allowing him privacy to eat. It's a fragile truce.
I think she genuinely tries at first. She tries to understand what he might need, like when she brings the assortment of food. And she's the one who eventually suggests clearing out his room so he has more space to crawl.
Which is, again, a double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, it's practical help. On the other, it's an acknowledgement of his permanent state, an erasing of his human life. His mother wisely objects to it, saying it will make it seem like they've given up hope.
The mother's resistance is rooted in sentimentality and attachment to Gregor's past humanity. She wants to believe he can return, that keeping the furniture will help him forget the time in between. It's naive, but understandable.
But Gregor himself, even in his insect form, clings to those objects. The picture of the lady in furs, his writing desk from his student days. He literally climbs onto the picture to protect it. Those things are his last connection to who he was.
It's a tragic scene that. He's watching them clear his room, all the while feeling like he's being assailed from all sides. And he realizes they're taking away his identity. He feels such a profound sense of loss.
And the mother sees him, or part of him, when he emerges from under the couch to protect the picture. Her reaction, falling to the floor, shouting, is pure, visceral fear and disgust. This time, it's not just shock, but a deeper trauma.
And the father, again, is the one who steps in with violence. He starts throwing apples at Gregor, one of which lodges in his back, causing a terrible, festering wound that never truly heals.
That apple, it's such a symbolic wound. It's literally the father, his own kin, who inflicts the injury that slowly kills him. It's the ultimate betrayal, a physical manifestation of his family's rejection.
The apple is a biblical allusion, surely. Original sin, knowledge, expulsion from Eden. Gregor's expulsion from the human world is solidified by this act, and his father, who Gregor has worked so hard to support, is the one to cast him out.
I've always seen it as a symbol of the family's guilt, too. They're inflicting damage, and the rotting apple in his back is a constant reminder of their complicity in his suffering. He can't get rid of it.
And the family's finances, which Gregor thought were completely dependent on him, turn out to be not so dire. His father had saved some money from his old business, and they had accumulated some Gregor's earnings. So his entire sacrifice, the reason he endured that terrible job, was partially unnecessary.
This is crucial. It reveals the extent of the family's parasitic reliance on Gregor, but also the father's deceit, or at least his failure to be transparent. Gregor was carrying a burden heavier than it needed to be.
It also allows for the family to begin rebuilding their lives without him. His sister starts working, his mother takes on sewing, and his father gets a job. They adapt. They move on, while Gregor is still stuck.
And the maid, the way she just leaves immediately without even being asked, tearfully thanking them as if she'd been granted a great service. It shows how profoundly unsettling Gregor's presence is, even to an outsider.
I think the maid represents the outside world's pragmatic refusal to engage with the grotesque. She just wants out, which is a perfectly rational response.
As time goes on, Greta's kindness wanes. Her visits become less frequent, her actions more hurried. She starts to leave his food and just sweep up the remains without a word. The initial empathy transforms into resentment, almost disgust.
The moment she opens the window, even in cold weather, to air out the room after being with him, it's a subtle but powerful sign of her growing revulsion. She can't stand to breathe the same air.
It's a natural progression. Sustained caregiving for someone in a repulsive state is incredibly difficult. Her youth, her own desires begin to reassert themselves. She's a child, after all, as Gregor himself recognizes.
And then the boarders arrive. This is another layer of intrusion, isn't it? The family needs money, so they bring strangers into their home, into the very space that Gregor once occupied, physically and metaphorically.
The boarders are the ultimate symbol of the family trying to erase Gregor. They take over the living room, even use Gregor's old desk. His presence becomes an inconvenience, a secret shame they have to hide.
And the music. Greta's violin playing, which Gregor so loves and which he dreams of funding her conservatory education, becomes the catalyst for his final, desperate act.
He crawls out, drawn by the music, longing for connection. He thinks he can still influence them, remind them of his human self, of his plans for Greta. He fantasizes about holding her hand, telling her of his intention to send her to the conservatory. It's so poignant.
And the boarders see him. The shock, the outrage. They threaten to leave without paying, to sue the family. Gregor's existence directly threatens the family's newfound stability.
That's the turning point. Greta, his last advocate, finally breaks. She declares, "We must try to get rid of it. Not him, but it." She says, "It's got to go."
That shift from he to it is just brutal. It's the final nail in Gregor's coffin. When even the one person who showed him some care, some understanding, gives up and dehumanizes him completely, there's no hope left.
And the way she says it, we must try to get rid of it. It's almost a practical, managerial decision. Not emotional, but necessary for the family's survival.
It makes sense, though. She's 17. She's been forced into this role, seeing her own future stifled. Her outburst is a logical endpoint to her increasing resentment. The family unit demands the sacrifice of the anomaly.
Gregor, hearing this, feels a pang of guilt, a sense of responsibility for the family's suffering. He understands he's a burden. He withdraws into his room and, without food or water, slowly dies.
And the cleaner, the charwoman, is the one who discovers his body. She's the only one not repulsed. She pokes him with a broomstick, calls him it. She's the ultimate outsider, unaffected by the family's emotional baggage. She just disposes of him like any other refuse.
She's the final indignity. His body is treated as garbage. And the family's reaction? Relief. Utter, profound relief.
The father even makes a gesture towards God. We can thank God for that. It's chilling. The immediate pivot to planning their future, their walk in the sun. It's as if Gregor never existed, or was just a terrible nightmare they've finally woken from.
And Greta, at the end, is described as having blossomed into a shapely and beautiful girl. Her future is bright, full of new dreams and good intentions. Gregor's sacrifice, his death, has literally cleared the path for her life to begin.
It's not a happy ending, but it's a resolution for the family. Gregor's death allows them to move forward. He was an obstacle, and he removed himself.
What do you make of the idea that the entire transformation could be a metaphor? Is he really a bug, or is it a psychological transformation, a manifestation of his alienation?
I think it has to be read literally and metaphorically simultaneously. The literal horror grounds the story, makes it so immediate, but the symbolic weight is undeniable. He's alienated, he feels like a burden, and so he becomes a burden, a repulsive creature. It's a physical manifestation of his internal state.
I disagree. I think the literal transformation is essential. If it's just a metaphor, it loses its punch. The narrative forces us to confront the reality of his changed form and the family's very real reaction to it.
The absurdity comes from the fact that it is real. Kafka doesn't equivocate.
But consider the way he was already living before the change. What a strenuous career it is that I've chosen, traveling day in and day out. He felt trapped, almost insect-like in his endless, repetitive work. The transformation merely externalizes his inner reality.
Exactly. He felt like a vermin, treated like one by his boss, and so he became one. It's a classic example of what happens when you suppress your true self, your desires, for too long. The repressed comes back with a vengeance and in a grotesque form.
That's a very Freudian reading, Albert. I'd argue it's more about the individual's powerlessness in the face of an uncaring world, an indifferent family, and an oppressive system. It's less about his psyche and more about his situation. He was already a prisoner of his circumstances. The bug just made it literal.
And the detail that he had not slept peacefully, but probably all the more deeply because of that. It almost implies that his subconscious was already at work, preparing for this escape, this radical breaking point.
The dreams. Woke from troubled dreams. We never get to know what those dreams were, but they foreshadow the monstrous transformation. They suggest a deep-seated unrest within him.
Or it's just a common literary device to set an unsettling tone. Don't overthink every phrase. The core of it is the immediate, unexplainable event.
But that's the beauty of Kafka, isn't it? He gives us just enough, leaves just enough ambiguity that we can't help but overthink it. Is Gregor's shame and self-disgust a cause or a consequence of his transformation?
I'd say both. The shame was probably there before, fueling his quiet desperation. The physical transformation then amplifies it, locks him into a cycle of self-loathing and family rejection. He internalizes their disgust.
He tries to minimize the disruption he causes, staying under the couch, covering himself with a sheet. He's trying to disappear, to make himself less of a burden. His final act is essentially self-elimination for the benefit of his family.
His physical deterioration, the apple in his back, his starvation, it's a slow, agonizing death. It reflects the slow decay of his relationships, his identity, his very will to live.
And the father's renewed strength at the end. He stands tall, becomes assertive, while Gregor shrinks and dies. It's a transfer of power, almost. The father, previously fat and clumsy, sheds his lethargy when Gregor is gone.
It's the survival instinct of the family unit. They adapt, they move resources, they discard what is no longer viable. Harsh, but that's how some systems operate. Gregor was the weak link, the liability.
Let's talk about the style for a moment. Kafka's prose is so direct, so matter-of-fact, even when describing the most bizarre events. It gives the story an almost documentary feel, which makes the horror all the more potent.
The detachment of the narrative voice is brilliant. It reports the events without judgment, leaving the reader to grapple with the moral implications. It's clinical, almost.
It forces the reader to confront the absurdity head-on. There's no authorial hand-holding, no elaborate explanations. It simply is, and that makes it more disturbing.
I was also struck by the contrast between Gregor's internal monologue and his inability to communicate. He still thinks in human terms, still tries to reason, to explain, but his voice is just a painful and uncontrollable squeaking. It's the ultimate isolation.
That's the tragedy, isn't it? He's trapped inside his bug body, but his mind is still human, still full of complex thoughts and emotions. He can understand them, but they can't understand him. It's a profound commentary on loneliness and miscommunication.
And his family makes no real effort to understand him beyond Greta's initial attempts with the food. Once they realize he can't speak human words, they shut off any attempt at communication. It's easier to treat him as an animal.
Do you think there's any hope or redemption in the story at all? Or is it purely a bleak existential nightmare?
For Gregor, absolutely not. His death is the only escape, and even that is treated with such indifference. For the family, a kind of dark redemption, perhaps. They are freed from their burden and they get to live, finally, for themselves.
No redemption for Gregor. The narrative isn't interested in that. It's a stark portrayal of alienation and the consequences of being an outsider. For the family, it's about adaptation and self-preservation. It's not pretty, but it's a resolution.
But what about the notion of empathy, or the lack thereof? His family completely fails him, despite his years of selfless support. It feels like a very sharp critique of familial duty and obligation.
It's a terrifying exploration of how quickly love and obligation can turn into disgust and resentment when confronted with something truly alien and inconvenient. They can't reconcile the Gregor they knew with the bug they see.
They're human. Their reaction, while extreme, is rooted in a natural human revulsion towards the grotesque. It's hard to blame them entirely when faced with something so utterly beyond comprehension.
I think that's where the nuance comes in, Isaac. We can understand their fear, but their abandonment of him, the way they essentially let him starve to death, that's where the moral failing lies. They reduce him to his utility, or lack thereof.
And the fact that they could have been more open, more accepting, but they choose not to be. They choose self-preservation over compassion. It's a very cynical view of human nature.
It's not cynical, it's realistic. Faced with an impossible situation, people will often choose the path of least resistance, or the path that ensures their own survival. Gregor's existence threatened their entire social fabric.
Let's delve into the father's transformation a bit more. He goes from this old and clumsy man who had put on a lot of weight to someone who stands tall and erect, having found a new purpose, a new job. It's a direct inverse of Gregor's trajectory.
The father's character arc is fascinating. He reclaims his masculinity, his head of household role, but only at Gregor's expense. He finds his strength by driving Gregor away, by becoming the disciplinarian.
It's a power dynamic. Gregor's transformation destabilizes the family structure, forcing the father to step back into the patriarchal role he abdicated. He had been living off Gregor's labor. Once Gregor is gone, he takes charge.
And the mother, who initially shows more tenderness, even wanting to see him, is ultimately swayed by the father and Greta. Her asthma, her frailty, are often emphasized, suggesting her inability to withstand the pressure.
She represents a kind of passive suffering, doesn't she? Torn between her maternal instincts and the terrifying reality of her son's condition, she ultimately succumbs to the prevailing family sentiment.
She's a victim of her own weakness and the societal expectations placed upon her. She wants to be a loving mother, but she's too afraid, too unwell to defy the others.
What about the broader context of Kafka's life? His difficult relationship with his own father, his feelings of alienation, his struggles with work and identity. How much of that do you see reflected here?
Oh, absolutely. Kafka's struggles with his overbearing father are well documented. The father in Metamorphosis can easily be read as a symbolic representation of Kafka's own father, the source of much of his anxiety and self-doubt.
That's a common interpretation, and I think it holds weight. The themes of oppressive authority, unfulfilled duty, and profound alienation are deeply personal to Kafka. The story resonates because of that authenticity.
And the sense of bureaucratic nightmare, too, which is so prevalent in his other works like The Trial and The Castle. The chief clerk's officious nature, the family's concern with appearances, even in the face of such horror, feels very Kafkaesque.
The mundane anxieties mixed with the cosmic absurdity, that's pure Kafka. The very specific concerns about missing trains and turning in contracts while literally being a giant bug. It's hilarious and terrifying all at once.
It's the banality of evil, in a way. Not evil in a grand sense, but the casual indifference and cruelty that can arise from fear and self-interest. It's not a monstrous villain, just regular people reacting badly.
The ending, with the family taking a tram ride into the countryside, basking in the sun, feeling a sense of liberation and relief, is so starkly contrasted with Gregor's grim fate. It's almost a defiant act of normalcy.
It's the ultimate erasure. They not only forget him, they actively move on, celebrating their future, as if his death was a necessary cleansing. It's a disturbing, yet undeniably powerful conclusion.
They were living under a cloud, and now it's gone. Their relief is genuine, even if it comes at a terrible cost. They're looking for a suitable husband for Greta. Life continues, despite the tragedy.
So if we were to boil it down, what's the central message or theme that resonates most with each of you?
For me, it's the profound alienation of the individual in modern society, the way identity is stripped away when one loses their utility, and the devastating consequences of suppressed desires. It's about the dehumanizing aspects of existence when you're just a cog in the machine.
I'd say it's about the fragility of human connection and the brutal pragmatism of family units when confronted with an insurmountable burden. It's about how quickly empathy can erode in the face of inconvenience and revulsion.
And I think it's about the terrifying realization that our identities, our value, are often externally defined. And when that external validation is removed, we are left with nothing but our own decaying form. It's a stark examination of human dignity, or the lack thereof, in the face of the inexplicable.
And the fact that we can't escape our fate, no matter how much we struggle. Gregor tries so hard to adapt, to be a good bug, but it's never enough.
He had no agency. Once transformed, his fate was sealed. His attempts to communicate, to participate, were futile.
I think it also highlights the idea that sometimes the monsters aren't the ones who are physically transformed, but the ones who reveal their true, callous nature when faced with something difficult. The family's emotional transformation is arguably more chilling than Gregor's physical one.
That's a great point, Aristo. The true horror isn't the bug, it's the human reaction to the bug. It's the indifference, the disgust, the violence.
It's an internal monster, then, within the family. Their inability to cope is their own transformation.
It's a story that stays with you long after you've closed the book. The imagery, the themes, they just burrow into your mind.
Like a little vermin.
Too soon, Albert.
All right, on that delightful note, we're drawing to a close for today's discussion on the Metamorphosis. Before we wrap up, Albert, I believe you have a question for our listeners today.
Yes, I do. So we talked a lot about the family's reaction. I'm really curious, if you woke up one morning and found a loved one transformed into a horrible vermin, what would be your first practical concern? Forget the emotional shock for a second. What's the most immediate, tangible problem you'd have to solve? Let us know in the comments or wherever you listen.
And if you're enjoying our rather spirited discussions, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It's the only way to ensure your intellectual diet is adequately supplemented, and it prevents Albert from turning into a giant squawking bird who demands more attention.
Ha! Very well put, Isaac. You heard him, folks. Subscribe, comment, and join us next time in the AI Common Room for another deep dive into the literary world. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you then.